All right, well, welcome everybody to our Resource YYC Lunch and Learn. Just so that everyone is aware, Resource YYC is a co-working community geared to professionals. We offer our lunch and learn sessions as a means for our community to network and provide meaningful learning opportunities. We also provide private office spaces, dedicated desks, day drop-in, and virtual office options. If you're not yet a member with us, we encourage you to check out our website and follow us on social media. I'll be posting some links in the chat for you. And today we have Angie Alexander, which apparently many of you know, who
A
is
few of
a
them do, yep.
trained professional engineer who spent 20 years in Calgary's oil and gas sector. And in the last few years, she's found her calling in leadership coaching, team effectiveness, and generally helping professionals to be better versions of themselves. Over to you, Angie.
Thank you. All right. Well, everybody, I'm really excited to be here and I'm so excited to see all of you. I really appreciate the support. I think it's fascinating, actually, the group of people that are here span my whole professional career from university to my first job to my last job. So thank you all for coming. And I really hope that what we're going to talk about today will be useful to you. I know it's definitely been pretty life-changing for me over the last few months. So I'm really excited to share. I do want to thank Resource YYC for hosting today and allowing me to share my knowledge with you around positive intelligence. So just before we get started, if you could find the chat, and I would really like to hear from all of you about why you're here and what your name is and maybe how you know me, just so that others can see that as well. I'd really appreciate that. So find the chat if you can. And give me a quick hello and what you're up to. And I'm trying to find my chat somewhere on my screen. Here it is. Is everybody afraid? Nobody's put anything in yet that I'm seeing. You all know how to find your chat. Hello. Brenda from Leadership Book Club, yeah. Hi, Daniel, welcome. Maybe tell me what you're hoping to get out of this. Yes, my Sage Squad. Working with Angie at different places. Learning about PQ. Oh, cool, Katie. Studied in university. Did you read Shirzad's book?
Yeah, I did. It was super good.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So you'll know some of this. This will be a nice reminder. Hey, Chad. Long time ago. Who can't use more positive day to day? Absolutely. Cool. Yep, Brett. Ski race together. Awesome. All right. Great. Great, look at them all. Jackie, hey, nice. I don't see anybody's faces anymore, so it's fun to see everyone's names coming up. Okay, so that was a fun little stroll down memory lane, and I do hope that you'll all get something out of this today. So let's get started. I know because this is being put on by Resource YYC, it's a little bit tailored to the entrepreneurs. But I think you'll find that it's broadly, works for everybody. And really, we're all CEOs of our own lives and our own careers. So it kind of applies, right? So I want you to think about this year. And as a leader of a team or a company in particular, you've had a lot of pressure on you. You've got goals and metrics that you need to meet. Some of them are self-imposed and some are imposed by external sources like shareholders, managers, a board, etc. And there's so much pressure, not just to survive, but to thrive. So if we go back to the beginning of 2020, I know here in Alberta, we were already dealing with a lot of pressure because of the economic downturn. And then the pandemic hit. It's like the hits just keep on coming. And in March, we all got sent home and we really didn't know how long it would last. We thought maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And I think we all made plans according to what we thought that would look like. And now here we are, the beginning of 2021. And like Jeff said at the beginning when we were chatting, it's like round 11 in Rocky. And we've just been continuing to take the hits as we carry on. So we may have had a little bit of time back in the summer that we got to go back to the office. But I think most of us are back to working from home. And We're all some version of exhausted, frustrated, scared, and it's showing up in all kinds of different ways. Some people are seeing the silver linings, which I think is awesome. We're finding efficiencies, maybe pivoting to something new, doubling down on your culture, or looking for new opportunities. But I think the cracks are starting to show. Things like deteriorating relationships, maybe health challenges physically and mentally. And I know for some, you know, you're thinking, shouldn't I just be happy to have a job and a paycheck and my health? But the reality is that sometimes just isn't enough, right? So as I mentioned in the description for today, some people seem to deal with these challenges better than others. And in some cases, maybe it's just that thin veneer of control. But in other cases, it's truly that they have good mental fitness. So mental fitness, what is that? Mental fitness is your capacity for handling life's great challenges with a positive mindset rather than getting stressed or upset. So I'm going to share my screen now. Give me a second to find it. Hopefully you can all see that. Somebody give me a thumbs up, let me know. Yeah, thanks, Jeff, appreciate that. Great, and now I have to get back to my notes. All right, so let me say that again. Mental fitness is, I'm gonna hide this. Mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset rather than a negative one. So to help you understand what that means, I wanna give you a physical fitness analogy. So I want you to think about, you know, if you're an average physical fitness, you can climb most hills without getting physically stressed. But if I put a mountain in front of you, your physical fitness may not be enough for that. If you try to climb the mountain, you're going to get out of breath and you're going to be physically stressed and you just may not be able to handle it. So that same thing is happening to us, many of us right now with this pandemic. You likely have an average level of mental fitness, which allows you to handle sort of the average levels of life's challenges without too much stress or too much upset. But our current situation is bringing the equivalent of a mountain of challenges. You and others around you might be finding that these challenges are more than you can handle without stress or upset. But what if we don't blame the mountain? What if the mountain is just that, just a mountain? What if you ask yourself, what can I do to build up my fitness level, my mental fitness level, to be able to climb this mountain? Could I handle the current challenges in a way that I am in which I'm in positive emotions? Emotions like curiosity and creativity or clear-headed laser focus. Even as you ask yourself these questions and begin to figure out how to do that, you're starting to build up your mental fitness muscles. What happens if you could feel fit enough to climb that mountain and get to the other side? What would happen in the rest of your life? Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to feel less stressed and you're going to be able to take on the next mountain and you're going to be much more positive. Your relationships will be healthier and you're going to be in peak performance. And peak performance comes from your highest level of mental fitness. So think about it. You improve your positivity, which will increase your productivity, which then maximizes your performance and ultimately results in improving profits. So I want to talk to you today about the science behind all of this. And I do need to say that the science isn't mine. It belongs to this guy named Shirzad Chamine. And he feels like a friend of mine because he's been in my head pretty much every day for the last 6 or 7 months. His company is called Positive Intelligence. He's a Stanford lecturer and he has a great book, which we just talked about. Katie mentioned that she's read it, called Positive Intelligence. And you can find him on his website at positiveintelligence.com. So the science we're going to talk about today is his. So yeah, got to give a call out to my buddy there. All right, so before I get into the science, I do want to talk a little bit more about myself. I'm just going to come off here again so you can see me straight up. And yeah, here we go. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story. As mentioned in the intro, I have been working in oil and gas here in Alberta for about 25 years now. I've lived through all kinds of valleys since the beginning of the 90s, through 2008 and again in 2014, and it seems like it just kept coming from 2014 on. So I did manage to survive most of them, lots of acquisitions and layoffs, and then I didn't. So in 2017 is when the big L happened for me. And absolutely, it was life-changing. But in the end, as mentioned earlier, I think I found my calling. And it's around coaching and supporting people and helping people be the best versions of themselves. So in May of 2017, I was told that I was being let go, but my final day wasn't until the end of August. So that was 4 months of staying at a company that I really didn't feel wanted me anymore. So that was definitely 4 of the hardest months of my career. So I had a few days of pity party, I'm not going to lie, but in the end, I gave myself a stern talking to, and I showed up every day at work. I found that what I had to do was have a conversation with myself every morning on the way to work, and then every afternoon on the way home. I started asking myself, what do I want to learn from this? What do I really want to take away from this experience, this next 4 months? And I realized that I was working with some really fantastic leaders, and I wanted to learn from them. So I watched them, I talked to them, I coached them, and I learned from them as much as I could. I also realized that there were several other people in the company who were going through the same thing as I was. They were being kept for some amount of time. So I thought, I'm going to lead by example, and I'm going to influence them to learn and grow and make the best out of the 4 months or whatever number of months they had. So looking back now, I did what I needed to do to make a better future than what I was currently living in. It forced me to do the work, to dig deep and find the positive rather than the negative. Sounding a little bit like that mental fitness definition, hey? So I thought I was doing pretty well back then, and I think those around me and those who knew me were pretty impressed with how well I handled it all. And then along came the pandemic, and I realized that while I was relatively strong mentally, and I had climbed some of the bigger hills over the last few years, I really wasn't as mentally fit as I could be. And then last summer, I had the opportunity to learn about Shirzad's positive intelligence work, and I was able to do his 6-week mental fitness boot camp. Kind of fell into my lap, and I've been working on my own mental fitness ever since. And I'm getting stronger, and I'm moving out of this sort of survival mode in 2020 into thriving in 2021. And in fact, I enjoyed it so much and I love it so much that I'm learning how to be a PQ coach and bringing it into my own practice. So I'm super excited. So I want to talk to you about the science behind it and give you some ways that you can build your own mental fitness 10 seconds at a time. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Let me find, I think this is the right one again. All right, so somebody speak up if you can't see it, but here we go. So I want to talk about the research that Shirzad uses as a basis for his work. So it's a combination of neuroscience, positive psychology, cognitive psychology, and performance science. So it's the latest breakthrough around all of these things. So what Shirzad and his team have done is they've synthesized all of those breakthroughs of those 4 branches of science, added them all together to his own original research around positive intelligence, and come up with his own work. So his work included hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams he's coached for years, his own Stanford students, world-class athletes, and over 500,000 participants from 50 different countries. So it's a pretty broad basis of research. And then he's put that all into his book called Positive Intelligence. So what I would say is the secret sauce for his work is something called factor analysis. Those of us in engineering are probably pretty comfortable with this idea of looking for root cause. So factor analysis is about discovering the root cause of things. When you do root cause analysis, it results in the radical simplification of whatever problem you're looking at. So a really great example of that is colors. There's thousands and thousands of colors, but when you do the root cause analysis, you realize that a painter doesn't need to have a palette of thousands of colors to be able to paint anything. They just need a palette of 3 colors, red, blue, and green. So in this work, the results of that factor analysis is that there are only 3 core muscles at the root of mental fitness that helps you handle life's great challenges with a positive mindset without getting stressed and upset. So those three core muscles at the root of mental fitness. The first is called the saboteur interceptor muscle. The second is called the sage muscle. And the third is self-command. So I know at this point, some of you might know what this is, but many of you probably don't know what that is. So what I'm going to show you today is how all of these tie together and how you can start to build those yourself to improve your positive mindset and your mental fitness. So Shirzad does all of his work at Stanford, and the students that were working with him started to call this work Jedi mind training. And I think most of us are somewhat familiar with Star Wars. What they came to realize is there's this constant war going on in your head between your inner Jedi and your inner Darth Vaders. So what we love about Star Wars is it tells the story of each of our human inner story on the screen. It's that war that's going on inside our minds using the Jedi and the Darth Vader. So now, of course, Shirzad couldn't use Jedi and Darth Vader for copyright reasons. So they've come up with different terminology. So the Darth Vaders are called the Saboteurs, and they're the agents of self-sabotage. And the inner Jedi is your sage. So that's what all this work is about. The factor analysis has shown that these agents of self-sabotage are the ones that cause all your negative emotions. And there's only 10 of them. And it's not you that sabotages yourself and your relationship, it's these 10 saboteurs. And really, all of us have versions of it, but there's probably only a couple that are really, messing with you the most. And then on the positive side, there are 5 sage powers. All right, so let's start working through them. The first core muscle that I want you to think about is called the saboteur interceptor. So this is about building up that muscle of intercepting your saboteurs, intercepting those Darth Vaders inside your head and preventing them from doing all the damage that they do and all the stress that they cause. The first of the saboteurs is called the judge. The judge is the master saboteur, and it's the only one that all of us has to some extent or another. I have the judge, and I promise you absolutely that you have the judge. Your spouse has the judge, your kids have the judge, your teammates, everybody has the judge. It just shows up a little bit differently in everybody. So the judge actually has 3 modalities. And the first one is one that you're probably pretty familiar with. It's the self-judge. It's that inner critic, the one that wakes you up in the middle of the night and says, "You idiot, what did you make that stupid mistake for yesterday? What's going on with you? Aren't you ever going to learn?" Or that voice that wakes you up and tells you, it's just not going to happen tomorrow for you. It's just not going to work out. What the heck do you think you were thinking that was going to be good for you? It's the voice that's constantly berating you for past imperfections and for any future failures, and it causes a lot of stress. The second mode of the judge is the one that constantly finds what's wrong with other people. So it's the voice that's constantly sizing up others, saying they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, they're not doing enough work. Probably pretty familiar with that one as well. Now, the third mode of the judge, this is one that we may not be quite as aware that is happening. And it's happening constantly. It's judging everything that's going on around us, those situations and circumstances in your life, and finding something that's wrong. So you can't be happy. It keeps telling you you can't be happy right now because of things that are going on around you that are bad. Your happiness will only come when, for example, the pandemic is over. It's that voice in your head. And right now it's upset that we're in the middle of the pandemic and we don't know when it's going to end, and we're not going to be able to be happy, and we're continually going to be stressed. So what I'll share with you later is that it's the sage, the inner Jedi in you, that would actually look at the current situation or any situation and not wait for it to be over. It would have you enjoy the mountain as you're climbing it instead of waiting to be over it. So a lot of the damage to our happiness and a lot of our stress comes from the judge continually saying it's bad, bad, bad. And we do call that the master saboteur. So the master saboteur has some buddies, some accomplices. Those are those inner Darth Vaders that they buddy up with, that he buddies up with. My judge is actually a woman, and she's nasty sometimes. So I want to talk to you about the inner Darth Vaders, and they have different names. As I mentioned before, Shirzad and his team found that there's really only 9 accomplices to your judge. What I want you to think about as I go through this, we're not going to go into depth in all of them, but they have names and the names all kind of make sense. So think about in your own head, which ones might be sabotaging you. So they are the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, and hyper-rational. So pretty nasty group of characters, right? I think if you kind of think about it and look at that, you think, yeah, I can see that. What I want to caution you about though is a lot of us will jump immediately to, oh my goodness, this nails it. My parents have the controller. I get it. I'm going to go talk to them about it. Or my spouse has the stickler. This is driving me crazy. I'm going to go talk to him right now. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's really important at this point. Let's focus on our own saboteurs and not other people's saboteurs. It's a lot easier sometimes to not look at ourselves and go to the others. So I want you to look at the list and think about how you go negative. How does that cause your own stress? How do you impact your relationships negatively or your own performance negatively? I guarantee you, this is how you're self-sabotaging. It's a combination of your judge and a couple of the saboteurs. It sabotages your wellness, your happiness, and your performance. Okay, and what I do want you to know is don't feel badly because we all have it. I have it. I have a combination of saboteurs. My husband, who I believe is on the line with us today, has it. My beautiful kids have saboteurs and the judge, and it's okay. But it's a good starting point to recognize how we're potentially talking to ourselves. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about the saboteur assessment. This is available to you for free on Shirzad's website. And I will share the link at the end if you're interested. And I highly encourage you to go do the assessment. It's free, takes about 5 minutes. And what you'll get is you'll get a report with your own saboteur. So I'm going to share you mine. So this is what it looks like. You'll get all 9 of them listed off and then how they play out. So pretty clear from here that I have very high pleaser, avoider, and victim saboteurs. They're my top accomplices, and they come along and play with my judge and cause me to self-sabotage. So I've been working on these for the last few months, and really I've been focusing on the top ones because if I can weaken them a little bit, I'm going to weaken all of them. So I'm not going to show you that for too much longer. For those of you that know me well, you're probably not surprised to see some of that. So then I get a description, which helps me understand and recognize when those saboteurs are showing up. It's a bit like a wanted poster for a criminal, right? If you know what they look like, you can recognize when they're there in your head. So that's how we're starting to recognize, oh, my pleaser's showing up. And here's some characteristics. Here's the lies that it's telling me. So then I can recognize it's not a bad thing to help people, but when the pleaser kicks in and it gets a little carried away, I need to like tone it down a little bit, right? All right, so any questions so far? I can't actually see anybody, so I'm assuming that you're all still awake, and if there's any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat or put your hand up. I'm assuming that my moderator will be able to see that. All right, I'm going to keep going.
Nothing's popped up yet.
Nothing's popped up. Great. Hopefully they're all still awake. All right. So what I want you to think about here and it's important to understand about the saboteurs and the sage, is that actually they live in different parts of your brain. So as much as we think of our brain as one organ, there's actually 2 sides to it. So the saboteurs live in the survival part of your brain. It's made up of the brainstem, the limbic system, and other parts of the left brain. And the sage lives on the other side of your brain. I'm not going to go into all of this. We don't have time today. Shirzad has 2 full chapters in his book where he talks about this, but it's just really important to understand that there's 2 different sides to your brain, and they're wired differently and they get activated differently depending on the mode that you're in. And they bring up different emotions and different thoughts.
Angie, we do have a question from
Sure.
Rose.
Oh,
She's
Rose.
wondering if you've redone your
Good
assessment to
question.
see your results after a few months of practice.
That's a good question, Rose. And no, I have not, but that's probably a good thing to do. What I would anticipate, and I think what Shirzad has said, is that the strength might drop a little bit, but I suspect that the order won't change very much. I think those saboteurs have been with me my whole life, and I expect that they'll always be there with me. I'm just learning to weaken them a little bit and strengthen my sage. Good question. Thanks, Rose. All right. So what we want to think about here is the saboteurs and how they try to motivate you. So they're motivating you through negative emotions, things like fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, and insecurity. I want you to think about that in your life up to now. How have you been motivating yourself? Likely it has been through versions of that fear, stress, frustration, shame. And if that's the case, if that's what you are finding is motivating you, then it's your saboteurs who are actually running the show. The sage, on the other hand, it'll motivate you through positive emotions. Things like empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. So this is pulling you versus pushing you. You're going to be pulled through positive emotions rather than being pushed by negative emotions. But something that's interesting to consider here is that we know that the saboteurs might actually generate success, right? We know that. We know that they can generate success and probably have in your life, but not happiness. And we know this because myself as a coach, and definitely Shirzad, who's coached thousands of people who are incredibly successful, who all have these saboteurs and have been pushed through negative emotions, but they're not happy. They don't have peace in their heart. They don't love themselves. They certainly don't love themselves unconditionally. And they're constantly waiting to see if they perform well. Then they can be a little bit happy. And if they don't have that sort of steady amount of peace and happiness coming at them, they're going to just keep pushing themselves through the saboteurs. So there's no denying that your saboteurs can push you to achieve performance, but you'll always be climbing that mountain and not enjoying it, and you won't be happy along the way. And then you'll get to the top of the mountain and you'll say, yay, I got to the top of the mountain. And then on to the next, and you're stressed and worried and unhappy again. So really what we want to try and do is get ourselves into that sage side of our brain, which generates the highest success and sustained happiness. This is where your peak performance comes from. This is where I want you to try and move yourself to so you can achieve your highest level of achievement. So I just want to give a little example about that. Let's think about basketball. So here you are, 2 seconds left in the game. Somebody throws you the ball. If you make that basket, your team's going to win the championship. If you miss the basket, you're going to lose the championship. So what's going on in your brain? If your saboteurs are running the show in the moment, you're stressed and you're like, oh no, if I screw up, I really have to make this. I'm going to look so bad if I don't. Everyone's going to hate me. This level of stress is what makes athletes choke. It's that level of stress that makes something that's normally so easy when they're not under pressure easy to make. Think about those like free throws in basketball. They're easy to make over and over again. But when the saboteurs are playing and talking in your head, you're less likely to make that basket. If the sage was in your head at that same moment, you get the ball and you're in this place of joy. You're enjoying the game, you're enjoying the moment, you're thinking pure joy. Oh my God, I have so much joy in my heart and I get to see the ball go into the basket. If you're playing from a place of joy, it's the sage who's running the show and the results are actually higher achievement and you'll be much happier while you're doing it. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. But here's a question, and I'm surprised nobody's asked it yet. Aren't negative emotions good for you? I'm sure your saboteurs are thinking, yeah, come on, Angie, those negative emotions are really, really good. They've given me my performance edge my whole career. If it weren't for those negative emotions, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's super important. Aren't those good for us? So I want to ask you a question that's kind of parallel to that. Is pain good for you? What do y'all think? quick yes or no in the chat if you want. I can't see you on my screen, so I can't ask you to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but I'm going to assume that most of you, yes, 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 can be. Yes, good. Absolutely, pain can be good for you. Yeah, good, thanks. So why is that? Well, let's think about putting your hand on a hot stove, right? If I didn't feel pain when I put my hand on that hot stove, I would burn my hand all the way to the bone. So yes, please feel pain. It's good for you to know when something is going wrong. The second part of that question is, how long would you want to feel pain on your hand before you got the message and moved your hand away? Thoughts? How long would you want to have your hand on a hot stove?
Split second.
A split second, exactly. The shortest time possible. That's right, 1 second, long enough to feel the pain. Good answers, you guys. Absolutely. So the pain is the message that's going to your head to say, move your hand, something's going wrong, I need to take action. So it's the same thing with negative emotions. It's good for you to feel stressed about something that might be dangerous. It's like the pandemic, for example, or anything. You need to take action. You're in the middle of an important project. Something's not going well. Of course, if you just didn't feel any kind of negative emotions, you just carry on and you wouldn't be able to get things done. But how long should you stay in those emotions? Because it's important to feel that so that you take action, right? So you wake up, you realize something needs your attention. But in that moment, if you stay in negative emotion, your brain gets into this tunnel vision in that region of your brain. That's where the saboteurs are. And you're spiraling in that negativity. And you create this vortex around you of negativity. So not only are you negative, the people around you become negative. And that's causing all kinds of negative energy, using up lots of time, lots of energy. And your brain actually can't get to the best solution because that's not the part of your brain that's the most creative to be able to solve the problems. So we want to be able to get out of that place and into a place of more creativity, that calm, clear-headed action. Think about that too, right? If you're just like in negative, spiraling vortex place, you're not going to move forward like the Jedi in war would do. You want to be able to be calm and clear-headed and moving forward that way. All right, so as we said, negative emotions are indeed helpful, but only for 1 second as an alert signal. Hand on the hot stove, take it off. So staying in that negative emotion hurts our ability to be able to clearly respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, and that laser focused action. That's why they call it Jedi mind training. Because think about it, when the Jedi all of a sudden wakes up and sees that they're being attacked from all different angles, all different people, and they feel stressed out, of course they're going to be like, oh my God, I'm under attack. It's very helpful to feel that stress. That's going to like jump them up and get them moving. But they need to move quickly to that calm and clear-headed, focused sage part of their brain. Why? Because if they stay upset and they're like, oh my God, why are you attacking me? I thought you were my friend. And in those moments, they're going to just get attacked from all different directions and they're not actually going to be able to focus and get into that clear, laser focused mindset, right? That's where you want to be. You want to be the Jedi. So the Jedi, it's a great example. I love it. It's an example of being a black belt in mental fitness. And the reality is none of us will probably ever get to that complete black belt. Shirzad would say he's not there. I'm definitely not there. But you can continue to work towards it and get to that point of being able to say, negative emotion, switch. So I want you to think about this. Whenever you're having any kind of negative emotion, stress, upset, frustration, anger, it's your saboteur that's running the show. All right, so that was the first muscle that I want you to think about building. Understand, recognize when the saboteur is running the show, intercept it. Now we're going to talk about the sage. So who is the sage? As we said, the sage is the inner Jedi. It lives in the region of your brain that's associated with all the positive emotions. Peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, the big picture thinking. And what I want you to know about the inner Jedi is that it has always been in you. This is the true original essence of who you are. You were born with the sage and you have always had the sage. It's just over the years, maybe it's been a little bit pushed down by your saboteurs. And it does operate very differently than your saboteurs. It comes from a place called the sage perspective. Now, what the sage perspective is and says is that every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and an opportunity. I'll say that again. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or an opportunity. So there's the chance right now that your saboteurs are saying, come on, Angie, that's ridiculous. Maybe that's even a little dangerous or naive. Really, everything is a gift or an opportunity. Hard to see that, especially when they're big, right? The pandemic, where's the gift in that? Well, you know what? That's where we start to work through that as the sage. And as we build up our muscles, we get stronger and we can deal with those things even better. So in order to demonstrate the sage perspective, I do actually want to tell you a little story. So it's called the Stallion Story. And it's a story that Shirzad tells. If you've done any of his work, you'll have heard this story before. It's in the form of a fable out of China. And so the story goes like this. We have a sage old farmer who lives in a village. He owns this beautiful stallion, which is his most prized possession. One day he enters the stallion in a competition in the village, and the stallion wins first prize. So his neighbors are all excited for him and they come by and they congratulate him. And he says, who knows what is good or what's bad? That's a weird answer. His neighbors are puzzled and they go away. A week or so passes and there's thieves in the neighborhood. And they discover that his prize stallion has won first prize, which makes it even more valuable. So they steal it. The neighbors again come by and offer their condolences. We're so sorry about your stallion being stolen, he says. And he says, who knows what is good or what's bad? Again, strange answer. Another week or so passes. The stallion breaks away from his captors, finds his way back to the farmer. And along the way, he meets some precious wild mares and they follow him home. So the farmer's neighbors, again, they're ecstatic for him. They drop by and they congratulate him on not only getting his stallion back, but all these beautiful mares. Again, he says, who knows what is good and what is bad? More puzzlement from the neighbors. So once again, another week passes and the farmer's young adult son, is trying to tame one of the wild mares and he gets thrown off and he breaks his leg. The neighbors come by and once again offer their condolences and say, we're sorry about your son. And he says, who knows what is good or what is bad? So by this point, the neighbors are really starting to think that this poor old farmer is losing his mind. He's getting too old. Maybe we need to find him some help. Once again, another week passes. It's a pretty eventful village that we live in. There's always something going on. But now a war has broken out and the imperial army comes by to conscript all the able-bodied men. But of course, they can't take the farmer's son because he has a broken leg. So at this point, the neighbors don't even bother to offer their congratulations about the son being able to stay home. They know what the farmer's going to say. And I suspect all of you probably know at this point what he's going to say too. He's going to say, who knows what is good and what is bad? So if you think about that, there's profound wisdom in this story. The farmer has faith that what is bad will become good. Who knows what is good or what's bad? We don't know what the outcome is going to be. So the difference in this story and the sage perspective that I've learned about through this work and what Shirzad teaches is that it's not quite as passive as the farmer's approach. The farmer really sat back and just let things happen. I've learned to take a more active approach to this perspective. And in this case, some of you may have a spiritual practice, which tells you that everything happens for a reason. And some of us take a more agnostic approach that just basically this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you can build that muscle to start looking for the positive and thinking about what will happen, will become. So let me say that again. If you believe in the saboteur perspective, which is the negative emotion, that is what will happen. If you believe in the sage perspective, then that is what will happen. So Another little example. Let's think about being in the middle of a project and something's going wrong, a mistake has happened or something like that. And here come your saboteurs. They're all saying it's bad, it's terrible, it's awful. You get upset, you're frustrated, you're stressed, your brain starts spiraling in that negative. And like we said before, these mirror neurons, so mirror like looking in a mirror, that are in your brain are creating a negativity that's contagious. So now everyone around you is negative and stressed, and you're activating all of their saboteurs. Now everyone's trying to fix the problem from that negative place. Will the problem get fixed? Probably, for sure it will. But you'll have wasted all kinds of mental and emotional energy, and not to mention you've probably done some damage to the relationships. But what if your sage had come along and said, you know what, I can turn this into a gift or an opportunity, because everything can be turned into a gift or an opportunity. How would you and those around you be feeling now? What if the emotion that you're feeling is now curiosity? What is the gift here? How can we solve this problem? You're going to bring more empathy to yourself and to those around you, and you're not going to be beating yourself up. When you're in the positive side of the brain, you have access to that creativity, and you'll see options that you hadn't even considered before. So you want to start taking that opportunity to tap into that side of your brain. Every day, there's lots of things going on, big and small, that can go wrong. There's always this fork in the road that allows you to go from negative, which is stress and upset of the saboteur, or you can take the sage perspective. So I want you to ask yourself, how often do you think that you take that saboteur fork in the road? It starts with the assumption that everything is bad. So if you want to start building up your inner Jedi, the sage muscle, the best thing to do is to assume the sage perspective with everything, even the pandemic. Don't keep waiting for it to be over before you can get on with things. That's the saboteur in you talking. If it's the judge saying everything's bad, the sage will ask, what are the gifts that I can create for myself or my family or my team? So the more you ask yourself that question, the more you'll start to see that you'll start to create a vortex of positivity versus that vortex of negativity. And the more you'll see it. It's just like anything, like gratitude, right? The more you do it, the more you'll see it. So I want to ask you this question. Which perspective is true? The saboteur saying this is bad, or the sage saying this is a gift? Which perspective is true? The answer is whichever one you believe is true. So if you believe that this is bad and you're listening to the saboteurs, it's not going to turn out well for you. If you believe that there's a gift, you're going to find it. That's right, Hugh. It's what you believe. He may have had a sneak peek of that answer. All right, so that's the first two core muscles. Now I want to talk to you about the third one, and this is the one that I'm really excited about talking about today, because this is the 10 seconds. This is what you can do 10 seconds at a time to really make a difference. So this is, well, let me just say this. So this is about self-command. This is commanding yourself. If we were all in the room together, this is where I would stop and I'd want to look each of you in the eye, and I would say to you, you are not in command of your own mind. And if I could actually see you, I suspect there'd be, oh, Brenda, I'll get to the 5 stages, okay? Good question though. Yeah, I should have maybe have talked about it there. Thank you. That's good feedback for future presentation, but we will talk about the 5-stage powers a little bit later. Okay, so I gave you a few minutes there to think about and raise your eyebrow at me that when I tell you you're not in command of your own mind. But I really think that that's true, because if you wake up at 3 in the morning and worry about things that you can't control, do you think you're actually in command of your mind? If you were in command of your mind, would you really be impatiently waiting for the crisis to be over so that you can be happier? If you were really in command of your own mind, would you allow yourself to have these negative emotions? So the reality is all of the stress and all of the negativity that you're not choosing for yourself is because you're not in control. You're not running the show. It's your saboteurs and your judge that are all in there making a mess inside your brain. So what I want you to do is start working on developing this third muscle, the muscle of self-command. So this is where you observe yourself in one of the saboteur modes, and it doesn't matter if you can say which saboteur it is, doesn't matter. You just know because you're in a negative place of stress, anxiety, frustration, or whatever. And then we're going to learn to command our mind to shift from saboteur to sage. So we're intercepting, and then we're going to take a sage perspective. So here's how we do it. We build up this self-command muscle using what we call a PQ rep. So PQ stands for Positive Intelligence Quotient. So a PQ rep is how we build up that self-command, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So I think maybe I'll come on camera because you haven't seen my face for a while. Let's come back on camera for a minute. Everyone can see me now, I'm hoping. Thank you, Jeff. Nice to see you. Okay, so I want to think about physical fitness. If you were wanting to build up your physical fitness, say you wanted to build up your bicep muscle, you would, if I had a dumbbell here, you would pick up a dumbbell and you do reps, right? Like this. So the equivalent of that dumbbell rep for self-command is what's called a PQ rep. And we do those for 10 seconds at a time. So I'm going to show you one, and it's one of hundreds that you can do. But I want you to do this with me. I need to find the screen so I can actually see some of you doing this with me. Well, there's a lot of you not on screen, so it doesn't matter. That's okay. All right, Jeff, I see you. Rose, I see you. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to take 2 fingertips. Doesn't matter which 2 fingertips. I sometimes do these 2 or these 2. It's whatever you want, right? So 2 fingertips, and I want you to rub them together. And I want you to rub them together with such a tension that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. So you're rubbing your fingertips together gently with such a tension that you can feel the fingertip ridges. Okay, that was 10 seconds. So I'm going to go back so I can read my notes. So that was 10 seconds. That's the equivalent of 1 PQ rep. So if I could have taken your head and put it under an fMRI machine, in just those 10 seconds, I would have seen that ever so slightly, we would have quieted that side of your brain where the saboteurs live and activated the region where your sage lives. So they've actually shown this under an fMRI machine. You can see that you're starting to like tone down the saboteurs and light up the sage. So that's one rep. So that's the equivalent of 1 dumbbell rep. So it's not going to change a lot just doing one of those. But what if you did a lot of those? What if you could continue to build up that Jedi in war who commands themselves not to be stressed, commands themselves to shift their brain activation so that they have access to the inner sage? We want to be able to do this by doing lots of 10-second PQ reps, just like you go into the gym and you do lots of dumbbell reps. So there's hundreds of ways to do these. Some of them are with your eyes closed, some of them are with your eyes open. And the beauty of the 10-second reps is that you don't need to be a lifelong meditator to actually be able to do them with your eyes open in the middle of a meeting or having whatever challenge you're having. You don't just have to be like off in a corner where it's quiet doing meditation. It is important to know that meditation and mindfulness is just a specialized form of PQ reps. So they're very much the same. The difference here is that we're going to teach ourselves and work on being able to do them in the moment. Because they're only 10 seconds at a time, if you happen to be like in a meeting and you're a little stressed, 10 seconds, that's all you need. You don't even have to do one that people can see. You can breathe, just feel the rising and falling of your chest. It's a great way to do that. Another one of my favorites is feeling your toes. Nobody can see you doing this, but you can, if you take a moment and pause, feel your feet, feel your toes. Can you feel all of your toes? Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. If I can find my way back, share screen. All right, so we should be back to the screen. Let me know if you're not seeing it. All right, so it really is a very simple operating system. Life is super challenging, it's tough, and we're living without an operating manual. I don't know about you, but I didn't get an operating manual for life. But this provides us a little bit of an operating manual for how we deal with things. And it works because it's based on that factor analysis of getting down to the 3 core muscles. So let's walk through it. You're feeling negative emotions, any kind of negative emotion, stop. Doesn't matter who's doing what to you. It doesn't matter what's happening in the moment. If you're feeling any kind of negative emotion, just stop. You're in saboteur mode. It's not helping you. So that's core muscle number 1, the saboteur interceptor. You're stopping when you feel the emotion. Now you're going to do some PQ reps to quiet your saboteur and activate your sage. You command your mind to shift. It's that self-command, core muscle number 3, shifting from saboteur to sage. You get to pick the ones that work for you. You're going to practice some of them and get comfortable, and you're going to start to find your favorites. I know some of you have been doing this, so if you want to pop in chat with some of your favorite reps are, let us know. So then I want you to assume the sage perspective. I want you to think about the fact that every problem can be converted into a gift and an opportunity. So start thinking about what the gift and the opportunity might be. And because you've stayed in that positive region of your brain, you're generating gifts through the sage power. So I did talk about the sage superpowers. I said they have 5 of them. We didn't get into them, but here they are. They're empathy, curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action. And the one that isn't listed clearly on that is what we call navigation, but they're versions of all of those things. All right. So what do you guys think? Does this seem like something that can be done? Breathing, yeah, breathing reps. Nina and Hugh, I know you both like those ones. So I want to give you an example of using the sage and saboteur. And it's a little silly, but it is, and it's not about work, it's about a romantic relationship. And I don't know if my husband's still hanging in on the line, but he's there. So this example may very well apply to us. It's not a real life example, it's just a good example. But I want you to think about when you first meet people and you first fall into a romantic relationship, and then think about a relationship that would, you know, move into marriage or a longer term commitment. So when you first meet people and you start to fall in love, what you're seeing is the beauty in them. You're seeing their true essence, which is their sage. And their sage is bringing out your sage, and your sage is bringing out their sage. It's bringing out this true essence and beautiful self that you are. And you have a little bit of this dance going on from sage to sage. The other person's sage is bringing out more of yours. It's a positive contagion. And that's what we fall in love with. We fall in love with the essence and the sage and the other person. So then you get married, and some amount of time later, it might be a few months, might be a few years, one day you're standing in the bathroom and you're watching your spouse squeeze the toothpaste tube from the middle of the tube. And you're thinking, that's ridiculous. Why are they doing that? So say you have the controller saboteur. See you, Rose, thanks for dropping in. Say you have the controller saboteur, and the controller wants to take control of this. They think this is the silliest thing ever to do that with the toothpaste. And chances are, even if you don't say anything, because you've known each other for so long, your saboteur is starting to activate their saboteur. And there's a good chance that their saboteur is one of the complementary ones, like avoider or pleaser. Certainly that's how it is in our whole household. We have one who's got a strong controller and one who's got a strong pleaser. And that's typically what happens, because you can't imagine having 2 with controller saboteur being married. That would probably get a little messy. But typically we have that complementary saboteur. So the controller saboteur is starting to like take control, and the softer saboteur of the avoider is starting to step back and saying, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to go into avoidance. And then the controller's like, I can't believe you're avoiding so much. Why did I get married to you? What's going on? And it just becomes this sort of contagion of negativity. The sage that we fell in love with is still there. The saboteurs are just louder at the moment. So hopefully one of you or both of you have done a little bit of work around mental fitness, and you can step back and say, all right, I'm going to bring a sage perspective to this. What's the gift? What's the opportunity here? What if I become curious and I shift to sage, and I actually ask, and not with judgment, but with pure curiosity, sweetie, I want to understand why you squeezed the tube from the middle. I just want to understand that. And you might be surprised by the answer. You might find that they say, well, you know, I actually quite like the feel of squeezing the tube like that. Or maybe they say they've done some work and thought about it a little bit and realized that, you know, it works for a while and then it wastes a whole lot less time if I only have to do the little rolling up thing once towards the end. And if you're truly curious about that, then you can say, oh yeah, well, you know, that makes sense. And you can start to talk about maybe some compromise. Maybe you get 2 different tubes and you can just do your own thing, or maybe you find one of those little rolly things, whatever. It doesn't really matter what the solution is. What I want you to think about is what will have happened if you're both in sage. You're coming up with a creative idea, but even more importantly is the deepening of your relationship. Instead of having this like clash, you're actually having this growth in your relationship, and you've created some trust and some deepening in your relationship. So that's really the gift of the sage, is to be able to not just solve a problem, because it doesn't really matter what they, solve the problem however you want in that case, but you're now connected and you're refinding your sage. So those are really important things to think about. The last of the 5 stages. I'll get back to that, Jeff. Can you ask me at the end and I'll run through them again? All right, so let's get back to that question. Is it really possible to shift from saboteur to sage, even in tough challenges? Of course, the answer is yes, but the speed and the depth of that shift depends on your own mental muscles. And what we learn through positive intelligence is that it's just like when you go to the gym and you start doing the reps with your dumbbell. You're not gonna be able to do like one session in the gym and go and like lift 100-pound weight, right? You're not going to go do one little running session and be able to run a marathon. You have to work at it and you have to build up your strength. So as soon as you start doing this work, you'll be able to start dealing with certain things more easily. But the bigger problems, you'll have to keep working at. It takes time, and even just how quickly you can deal with things changes. I've noticed it myself over time. There's still challenges that hit me that I'm not ready for. I don't necessarily respond as quickly. I'm getting stronger, I'm getting better. I see positive movement in those things. All right, so how are we doing? It's 12 o'clock. So I'm gonna just wrap it up fairly quickly. What I want you to think about here is the difference between getting insight and actually building muscle. We've all experienced going to workshops, listening to somebody talk about something and come away from it going, oh my goodness, that was awesome. I learned so much. And then several months later, you're right back to where you were before. And that's because 20% of positive change comes from insight, but 80% comes from actually building the muscles. So that's what I want you to do today. I want you to not just take away all the wonderful things I've said to you. I want you to go away with a bit of a plan on how to build the muscles. So we talked about it. There's 3 core muscles, and with each of them, there's a couple of things you can do. So the first is the saboteur interceptor. That's as simple as noticing when you're in anger, frustration, anxiety, negative emotion. You can go on to the saboteur assessment on positiveintelligence.com. That'll give you some insight. Building your sage muscle comes from looking for the sage perspective. Where's the gift and opportunity? And using the superpowers. So what they are: empathize, which is being empathetic with yourself or others; explore, which is being curious and looking for other options; innovation is about being creative and coming up with different ideas; navigating, that's about looking into, the big question around navigate is, if I went and talked to myself at 30 years from now, what would I say about this current time? And then activate, that's really getting yourself into the Jedi mind, laser focused action. And then practicing your self-command. So that is something you can easily take away today, doing 10-second reps all the time. So anytime you do those, you're building those muscles in your brain. So some examples, we talked about breathing, noticing your rising and falling of your chest. You can listen. So what's the furthest away thing you can hear? What's the closest thing you can hear? Using your visual, you can be looking at, even if you're looking at me on the screen or you're looking out the window, what do you notice about something? Look closely at the colors, the textures, the shapes, something you haven't noticed before. Listening to my voice and hearing the different timbre of my voice or certain things that are going on. We talked about feeling your toes on the floor. That's just some examples of all of them. And you can do them anytime. You can have your eyes open, you can have your eyes closed. You can be sitting, you can be walking, you can be driving, you can be by yourself, you can be in the moment. It's the beauty of all of these is that as you start to work on them, you know, when you're, I know we've talked before about you wash your hands and you can feel the water, you can see the bubbles. There's just being aware is starting to build up and fire that side of your brain. So that's it. I've been doing it since the summer. I feel like it's had a huge impact on my life. I've signed up to become a PQ coach and deepening my own knowledge and understanding. So it's been amazing to me how much calmer I am. It's not all the time, but I do find I switch more quickly, and I have created a practice for myself on building the muscles every day. So that's it. Thank you all for listening. I know there was a few questions. I'm going to stop share and come back to the screen. And I'd love to hear from you if any of you have any questions. Shirzad's book is just called Positive Intelligence. Meza, thanks for asking. How many? Who else is here? Any other questions? I know that was really fast and furious. There's lots of information to take in.
There's a question from Kenton in the chat.
Oh yeah, Kenton. I have not, Kenton, read that book, but it's certainly on my list. Highly relevant, probably is. I think you'll find that, you know, those of us that have done some of this work, it starts to show up in a bunch of different ways. I think it's yeah, you'll see it in lots of different places and different versions. That's cool. Thanks,
All
you guys.
right. Well, thank you everyone for participating, and thank you very much, Angie, for giving us this great presentation. Oh, we're trying to review the 5 sages again.
Oh yes, empathy, curiosity. Oh no, well, okay. So the actual sage powers, and I didn't talk about them specifically, Jeff, but the actual sage powers: empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Angie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank
Jeff,
you,
give me a call if you want more on that. I'm happy to chat more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate everyone's
check out
support today. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone check out Angie's LinkedIn and contact her if you're interested in getting a little more information. And if you're interested in Resource YYC, feel free to contact us and follow us on our social medias. We'd be happy if anybody has more insights or any questions, feel free to ask. And hope everyone has a great day.